We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for their light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariable the same object, evinces and design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is the right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. I just read part of the Declaration of Independence. This was the mindset of America's forefathers when this country was first established. It is the very reason Article 5 was amended into the United States Constitution as a form of direct government. For the people, we the people, to be able to intervene when the government has gone rogue or is not representing the people who elected them, not representing the wishes of the people who elected them. I firmly believe that it is the very reason, it is the very cause that Donald Trump was reelected as the United States President. However, we cannot stop fighting for our freedoms. Article 5 was amended into the United States Constitution for the purpose, if that comes about again, where we have to defend our freedoms. We cannot wait until Election Day to do that. We must be able to intervene. We the people must be able to intervene before election cycle comes around again. We would not be in this situation had we been able to intervene. The majority of Americans saw what was going on, but they were helpless to do anything about it until election cycle come around again. Article 5 was put into place because of such reasons. However, we don't have an option in many states to even be a part of the Article 5 process unless the state legislature approves it. That choice went away for the legislatures when the very first convention was held. Before the very first convention was held, the people of the states had to ask permission to be a part of an Article 5 or even call an Article 5 convention. That went away. We do not need their permission. We don't have to have their approval. We are governed by the consent of the governed, not the approval of state legislatures. Article 5 is a constitutional right that cannot be abridged by any level of government. But yet 19 states that I'm aware of at this point has overturned the approval without the consent of the governed. That is an abridgment of their constitutional right to an Article 5 convention. Yes, they were elected to represent the people who elected them. And yes, they have the right to assume that people would want to be able to exercise their constitutional right to an Article 5 convention. However, they do not have the right to presume, without direct consent of the people that elected them, they do not have the right to deny it. They don't have the right to rescind it. That is an abridgment of their Article 5 Constitution. Now, that is the reason that I posted a letter on my Facebook asking people to download it and mail it to the U.S. Supreme Court, because I have already done it to all 9 of them, explaining this. It's going to take an effort nationwide to get the U.S. Supreme Court to tell the state legislatures, you will recognize that the people of your state automatically have a right to an Article 5 convention, and you do not have to approve it. It's automatic. You rubber stamp it. They don't need your approval. They don't need your consent. They are governed by their consent. They give you consent to govern. You don't have the authority to rescind it. You don't have the authority to deny it. That is an abridgment of their right to an Article 5 convention. Whether they choose to be a part of it or not is up to them, but you don't have a say in the matter. Now, a word. There is an organization called Conventions of the States. That is their main purpose. Now, I initially volunteered to be a part of that, but I am not going to be a part of that movement anymore. What I am is promoting an Article 5 convention that happens to align with what they are trying to do. But at one of the meetings that I went to, I made it very clear to their supervisors that if I was going to be a part of this, that I would not be representing them unless they gave me verbal or written permission to do so. Because I don't represent COS, I represent them through my support for them, as does anybody who is a part of that organization. You either get paid to do it by them, or they give you permission to do it. Otherwise, you don't represent them. You only represent them through the support you're giving them. Volunteerism. There is no authority in your position. The only thing that you have is they either pay you to do it, or they give you written permission to do it. Otherwise, you don't speak on their behalf. You don't speak for them. You're speaking in support of them, but you are not their representative. You are representing them through your support of them. That is it. So you need to get that clear. And I'll tell you this too. You need to get out of your own way, COS. Because initially, you affirmed. You affirmed that the state legislatures no longer had a say in whether to approve this or not. We don't need their consent. Before the first convention was, sure, you said so yourself. The states had to get approval from the state legislatures, but even the U.S. Supreme Court recognized that the governed does not need the consent of state legislature. That was obsolete after the first convention was made. You made that clear, but yet you want to recognize state legislatures' approval before having one, before holding an Article 5 convention. You need to get out of your own way and start demanding through public petitions, which you are doing, that they automatically approve this so that we don't have to go to the U.S. Supreme Court and make them do it, and they lose face because of it. Because the reality is, it's the consent of the governed. I just read it from the Declaration of Independence. That was their mindset then. It's our mindset now. We would not be in this position if the state legislatures had not forgot who they work for. Donald Trump would not be U.S. president again had the Democrats, the liberal Democrats, the progressive movement had not prioritized the best welfare, the freedoms and the liberties of this country as the highest priority. We would not be in this situation. But we need to get out of our own way and start taking back. It's that the power is already ours. The only thing is we have to recognize it and we have to demand that they respect it. That's what Article 5 is all about. That's what this convention's all about. It's not about prestige. It's not about holding some kind of position in some organization that's forming or pushing the issue of having an Article 5. It's not about that. It's about doing what's best for this country. It's about securing our freedoms for ourselves and our future generations. So I'm asking everybody who sees this, download that letter that I put on my Facebook. You don't have to sign it, just mail it. Mail it to the U.S. Supreme Court, because you get enough of those coming through, they won't have enough to process anything else, and the message will come through. And they will get on the ball and tell the state legislatures, hey, you know what? It is appropriate that you would assume that the majority of the people in your state would want to have the option of being a part of an Article 5 convention, but you do not have the authority to say they can't. You have to have a direct government decision from your people, the residents of your state. That's the way that works. And then we can get an Article 5 convention started so that we can put limitations on the terms of how long a person can serve in Congress. Because it should not be 30 years. It ought not be a lifetime service, just like on the U.S. Supreme Court. We don't have a choice when we have no voice, and we have no voice when we have no choice. So I'm asking everybody, send this video out to everybody. Let them hear what I have got to say about this. But as far as I'm concerned, I've done my part. I've brought the issue up. Yes, I'm glad Donald Trump has gotten reelected. Thank God for him. What kind of mess we would have been in if Joe Biden had gotten reelected and him rubber stamp everything that liberals and progressives have been putting in front of him. That's why we're in this mess. But we can't stop there. We've got to get it in place that if this ever comes back up again, we the people have an avenue we can intervene. And if we do that, not necessarily that we have to, probably won't have to, simply because the elected will understand that at the drop of a hat, we the people can intervene and they will be out of a job, and that is one thing that they want to keep. They want to stay in power. They will do what we say that they will do. Not when they and how they want to, but when we tell them to, because we are the ones who run this thing. Not them. And it seems to me that they quite often forget that they are a public servant. Now I can tell you this. Don't confuse confidence for arrogance or ego or promoting one's own personal agenda, because the thing is that when we come together, it's bold. It's courageous. It is not ego. It's public service as well. And we have to stand together or surely we will fall apart. So I'm asking you, download that letter, mail it to the U.S. Supreme Court, and let's get the states to recognize that we automatically have a right to an Article 5 convention. We don't need their approval. They need ours. They don't have the right to deny our Article 5 convention. They do what we say. They need our direct input if they're going to deny it. They can't just arbitrarily do it. It is a right. And that's what I've got to say about it. And I'm hoping somebody will see this and do something about it and help do it. Now I will say this too, just one thing, because I brought up their name before, the COS, Conventions of the States. It's an honorable goal. Noble. You should support it. But you do it on your own terms. You don't represent them. You support them. You don't speak for them. You speak for yourself. Unless they pay you to do it, and they give you written or verbal permission to do it. Otherwise, you're on your own, as you were when you volunteered to do something for them to promote their cause. Anyway, that's what I've got to say about it, and I hope that someone will see this and do something about it, and at least share it so someone who might want to be knowing about it would say something. God bless America, and I hope that you have a great day.